What is up, guys? This is Alex from First for Figures.
Hey everyone, this is Chuckles.
Who do we have here? Conker's
Conker's
Bad Fur Days. Conker! Hey! Finally! The king of all the land.
Ooh.
There he is. Conker the Squirrel. Love it.
The king.
The king. King Conker, however you want to call it. He is absolutely looking awesome. Check it out on that throne.
I know.
It was the Panther King's throne, but R.I.P. he is no more. We have the one and only true king.
Massive chair.
Massive, massive chair. Fit for a king, otherwise known as the throne. The throne. So happy that we're finally talking about this. You know, obviously this is the second time that we've been working with Rare with regards to one of their properties. The first one we did, of course, was Banjo-Kazooie, but you know, this guy, he can't be any more different to Banjo-Kazooie in the terms of the way that the personalities are. You have the sort of happy-go-lucky of Banjo-Kazooie, then you have this really, really pissed off squirrel sitting there in this throne saying bad words all the time. I really like that contrasting style, even though they look similar in terms of that sort of style, but I like the way that he's...
They're both iconic in their own way.
In their own ways.
Banjo-Kazooie had its time, now Conker also had its time as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm really, really happy to have had a chance to work on this, Chucks. It's been a lot of fun working on this. So, welcome if this is the first time to come to one of these making of documentaries. We usually go through a lot of the reasons why and how design choices of why we design whatever piece it may be, some of the design choices, and Chucks, I believe you also get some questions as well.
That's right, yes. So if you want to participate in one of these documentaries, making of documentaries, make sure you join our First for Figures official collectors club on Facebook.
Bada bing.
In there, every time we do a launch, we'll make a post asking you guys if you have any questions with regards to this product launch, and here we are making this video.
Bada boom, there you go.
Right.
So, absolutely guys, go check it out. We look forward to any other questions, and even if you've seen this for the first time, you can also jump into the club and ask us some questions after the fact, and we can get back to you on that. We're always in there anyways.
Yep.
So, Chucks, we're going to kick it off.
We've got some
questions. Yeah,
all right.
sure.
All right, first question from Brenton Friedley. Why did you choose the chair pose over the military or the chainsaw pose as the first?
That is a great question. You know, definitely you see him wearing a helmet, guns, that sort of military style, right? You know, storming the beach, you know, all of that sort of stuff. But there is a bookend of scenes in this game. You start off seeing Conker, and it's a pan out, very, very much like Clockwork Orange. That sort of slow pan out, and he's on the throne. He's in this scene, and the first time you start hearing about him, there I am, you know. And the last scene is also this, so it's like they're bookmarked in between these really two iconic scenes, and as it pulls back, you see all the other characters around him, and it really is just quite iconic. And for me, it was quite easy to decide that it was going to be this one, and it made a lot of sense. As I said, it's very, very iconic. So that's the reason why we went with this pose, and definitely I'm happy that we did. But why don't we actually have a look at some of the actual pose itself, Chucks? Why don't we give this a bit of a spin?
Yeah.
So as you can see, he's sitting there, just like at the beginning of the game, on the actual throne itself, and he's sitting. As I said, it was originally for the Panther King, who's ginormous in comparison. He's a little small, but deadly squirrel, I should say. He's sitting right on the front of the chair and you can see actually from some of the if we turn this a little bit at the back there is a bit of a sort of gap between the back of the chair and the front, which would you imagine if you were a small character sitting in a big chair, to get that sense and that feeling that he is, like, it's not really for him, and because it was for the Panther King, right? So you really got that feeling by having that distance between the front and the back of the pose. But the pose himself, as you see, his little feet are sticking over the front of the front of the throne in the beginning. At the front, and he has his glass of milk, and he's got a great crown on his head. again, is just pulling it directly out of the game. And Charles, can you tell me a little bit about his hands? He's got his left hand.
Oh, yeah.
What's going on over there?
Yeah, definitely. His arms resting on top of the cushion. Oh.
He's got that hand. It's sort of flat touching it. It's kind of giving you a sort of sense of stability because he's he's got his hand there to keep him steady, and it's
because his back sitting right bang in the middle of the chair. So if it wasn't to the side, he might be resting his arm on the armrest. But
right, if he was leaning to the side, but again we were sort of facing.
Just like in the game where he's sitting right in the middle of it.
Exactly. Yeah. We're just trying to recreate that special scene. And if you have a look at the way his legs are sort of sit, they're sort of open up a little bit. It's nice to, whilst he's so small, and I'm really grateful because this is it's the scene from the actual game. So we didn't actually do anything apart from just really recreate that. But it's nice to sort of see him open his legs a little bit, just to give himself a little bit more presence. Because if he was kind of like legs a little bit close together, you might feel he was a little bit small. But the way that we have the composition of the tail, for example, is coming over to the side. If we just pause this over here, you can see we have this pause it here. We've got the tail sort of taking the right side, and on the left side, you have his hand and his legs sort of spreading open, just to give a little bit more, almost like he's trying to fill that throne the best he can in his small frame, this huge throne, the best he can, and that's sort of how he is, he's doing it. And the pose, again, it's all about what the guys over at Rare did. It looks really great. But let's talk a little bit about that face, Chalks. He has this expression that is like, I've had a really, really bad day. Some might even say a bad fur day, but can you really see that expression in his face? It was something that was really important to make sure we got.
God, this has some weight to it. Sometimes turntable. Yeah, that angry stern.
Is it the turntable or is it just his weight?
It's definitely the weight. Has some weight to it. Yeah. So definitely, I mean, look at the face on that. It's serious. Really, really angry.
I like to see you. Should we say? Do we have a beeping out words? Well, obviously in the game there's a lot of censorship in it as well in terms of the bleep. So he has this really, really sort of scoury looking face, and it was really important that we could recreate that. And it's kind of tough because it's not like as a human. It's how do we get that feeling, and it was more about the angles of the eyebrows. You can see the way the angle of the eyebrows, it really gives a sense of a sense of sort of anger or pissed offness, and that is definitely something. Yeah, sort of frowning look. And if you really take the human characteristics, obviously this is a squirrel, but if you take human characteristics, and if you're gonna caricaturize it, make it into a cartoon or something, an angry kind of scowl, you will have that kind of V shape of the eyebrows, right? Which you really, really get that with his eyes. I mean, you see them examples when he's happy, the eyes will be nice and round, but he's really got this slanting look to his eyes, which is gotta portray that feeling of pissed offness, that emotion in it, which I feel it's been well recreated, definitely. And that's pretty much in terms of the pose itself. Again, it wasn't too difficult to come up with this because we knew we had to recreate a certain scene. So there was no artistic liberty in terms of the pose. It really was some sort of engineering aspect of things, obviously making sure that there are points of contact, that the tail sort of touches, that the hand
has
touches.
Has a sense of depth, gives the character itself his tail like volume as well, because in the game you're just looking at it from front on. Right. Yeah, but obviously with this one transitioning into a 3D, gives it more character and gives it more life. Absolutely. So it definitely has the recreation of it, and the way and the engineering aspect of some things, of course, is important. And then the facial expression, again, just trying to recreate what we needed to do meant it was quite straightforward. It wasn't. We had a goal. It was either get it right or it's not, and keep going until we got it right. And hopefully you guys agree we got it right in terms of matching the pose. Cool. Alright then, next question from James Bennington. When designing Conker, did you want to go for a smooth or textured sculpt for his fur?
Okay, that's a great question. I think it's a great time to sort of talk a little bit about the two versions of the game. Now, the first game, of course, came out on the Nintendo 64. That was Conker's Bad Fur Day, and then was released for the Xbox, and it was, of course, Live and Reloaded. And there was quite it was almost like the OG remastered. I know we've had remasters recently, but it's like almost the OG version of it, where they actually updated all the graphics as well, and they did a fantastic job of doing that. However, one of the things that was pretty tough about that from our point of view is they done this. I mean, it looked amazing in the game. It was this amazing technology that they used in order to have that fur feeling, like you really had fur, and like moving fur, and it's very, very fluffy is the way. When you compare it to the N64 days of the angular, very sort of similar style of just very flat planes, which of course we know is the graphical limitations of the time. And then you go and see it in this Live and Reloaded version, it really is quite a big difference in the way that the fur is treated. Now, in terms of the character, they look instantly recognizable, but it's more about the fur texture and the way that that is actually portrayed in the game. So when it came to the fur, there was a couple of things that we were really looking at, weren't we, Chuck? The first thing was comparing it to how Banjo was going to be. We knew that there was going to be likely to be those that are Banjo and Conker fans, and most likely you will find those fans will have both and put them both next to each other on their shelves. And if you haven't had a chance to go check it out, please do go check out our Banjo-Kazooie making of documentary, or just at least what it looks like. And then you can sort of really see that the fine texture that we have for the fur is really sort of taking into consideration of the Banjo as well, just to make sure that they look good together. And what you'll see with the Sculpt now, if we sort of it's taking a long time to turn around, is there's actually two different fur styles added to this. Now there is the difference between the fur on the legs and the face, which is the two main areas that you sort of see on him, and his tail. Now, Chops, can you tell the difference?
Yeah, definitely straight away. You can, it's very easy to spot. Let's go with the face and the body. Obviously, they're much more closer, much more finer. And then with the tail, it's literally much chunkier to give that sense of fluffiness, where the furs are much larger and much more spread out between each strand.
Right, that's absolutely right. And if you take a typical, if you have a look at a normal squirrel, usually you'll find that has a really gorgeous, beautiful tail that has that volume to it, which obviously we have that volume effect. That's just quite easy, just by simply creating the mass to make that kind of idea of being fluffy. But it's the final end detail part that I'm referring to, where what you see there, Chuckles, which is that the actual fur itself that you can see on top of the sculpting of the fur on top of it is a mixture of it's much sort of bigger pieces, bigger sort of pieces
like overlapping each other to give it some height as well.
Right. Whereas if you look at the kind of fur details on the face and the legs, they're much more single lines that are more not really 3D. They're more like carved lines directly.
A little bit more compact as well between each line.
Right. Each line is that's absolutely right. Whereas these ones, the lines are much wider. Each one. Well, we wouldn't even call them a line. They're more like sort of individual fur kind of clumps, I would call them. Whereas the fur clumps and these are very, very thin and very, very put together. So it gives a really nice contrast, which you expect to see on a squirrel itself, and that's why it's been brought into the whole feeling for Conker itself, Conker himself, I should say. So definitely the fur texture, so answering James' question, was considering Banjo-Kazooie was not smooth like the N64 style, and considering that these were going to be paired, we knew that we were going to definitely do fur. Considering that squirrels themselves have different types of texture of furs amongst their bodies and their tails, we wanted to translate that as well. And as I said, going back to the Xbox version, it's not possible to create that kind of fluffiness in a hard model unless you're using something like flocking, which is not something that we really wanted to do for Conker. So I'm really happy with the way that we got the fur effect down and the way it sort of looks. So if you have a look at the actual fur lining chocks, can you notice some stuff? If I turn this around to you, keep turning this around. Because it's not just saying that the fur is just going in it's just one style. There are also things in terms of directions that really have to be taken into account.
Yeah, I mean, look at the directions on like straight away from the face. As we were trying to replicate the expression that is given off, it's more tight around the top of the forehead.
Right.
Yeah, around the top of the nose as well, around the ridge, and then with the cheeks, the direction is going pulled back.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's basically following almost like a typical hairstyle, as if you like to slick all your hair back, right? Right. It sort of goes that sort of way, and then can you see the way that we've done it for the legs as well?
Yeah.
And the body
they're all going straight down.
Going straight down, which makes sense. It's so that was definitely taken into consideration. It's not like we had all the fur going in a certain direction. They all sort of made sense as if you're going down the body. If it's going down the arms, it'd be going down this way. If it's going down the legs, and then if it's about the face, almost like how you would comb your hair. That if I had any, I would know a little bit more about it.
Yeah, and the direction for the tail, obviously, just looking at here, it follows
exactly
the direction of the tail. So as it curves around the edge, it follows through as well, and they're all kind of like curve towards the end point of the tail.
Absolutely.
From all directions.
Absolutely. So they're not. That's absolutely what I wanted to point out. They're not going in different directions. Like some is going down, some is going to the left, some is going to the right. They're all kind of following along the path of going to the tip. They're all sort of pointing towards that direction. So that was definitely that we wanted to make sure that we portrayed that itself. So why don't you have a keep going down from that's answering James's thing. But why don't we use this question to sort of talk a little bit about the detail shock. So over to you. Why don't you start on Conker himself, top to bottom, and then of course you can then start thinking about this massive beast behind him as well.
All right, then let's just jump straight in there. Look at that crown.
Conker the king of all the land.
That's right. You need that crown. So obviously very nice because
you can see a bit of his ear pointing out.
The top, yeah. So that part is literally, you can still see the other ear sticking out in the middle of the crown. Yeah, obviously. I mean the gold. It's not just one flat gold. There's different shades of gold towards the fluffy part around the rim.
It's got some shading in it.
Yeah, it's shading there. So it's like if you're looking at it from different angles with a bright light, you can see the gold is coming in different directions. And then you get the kind of like the white kind of fur that goes around the bottom of the crown. That is sculpted. Has some thickness to it. And then you have the.
And again, that's a kind of fluffy texture to it.
It's a fluffy texture, so that's a different type of fur. And then you have the sculpted gems. I haven't counted how many, but there's definitely that goes all the way around it.
It does.
Yep.
It's
nicely spaced out between them. So
and the great thing is, and maybe you can't see it from your angle, but I can really see it on mine. What you're noticing is on the outside, but everything that you mentioned about the fluffiness and the gems. So the gems are not, but the fluffiness is on the inside.
On the inside as well. Yeah,
absolutely.
The crown has some. It's all 3D sculpted, guys.
Absolutely.
There's some thickness to the crown itself.
Yeah.
And then, right, so that's angled on top of his head.
Yeah. Just like in the scene.
Yeah. And then, look at the face on that. I mean, the ears, the way it curves around the top. You can see the hairs is kind of like following the same pattern for the tail, where all the finer hairs kind of go straight right to the tip.
Yeah.
And then, Can
you see some subtle colouring where it's very slightly lighter at the tips?
It's more obvious with the tail. We'll go into that a little bit later. But with the head sculpt, you see the oranges and the kind of lighter orange and yellow before it goes to the kind of slight creamy fur that he has on his cheeks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then just from looking at the side profile, you can see the skin and the flesh kind of like protruding outwards above in front of his eye sockets.
Again, it's to give that really sense of scouring. So instead of just the angle, it's having a bit of meat to it as well to give it that overhang.
Yeah, and then the creases between the kind of the eyebrow towards the nostril. the nose, that tense expression, and then the kind of puffed out cheeks. That's quite, you know.
It's not a hamster, but it looks like it could be smuggling something in there.
Yeah, but just looking at it from underneath, I mean, you know, all the hair texture goes all the way underneath the face until you get to his teeth. Yeah.
And he has two little cute teeth hanging out over there.
Hanging out, yeah. You know, on top of his bottom lip.
Absolutely. So you can really get to see it and the way it's sort of just... but it's not just, as you said, there are teeth, but there is something behind it, which is the bottom jaw.
Yeah, the bottom jaw. Yeah, so it's like overhanging in front.
Because you could clearly not have it at all.
Yeah.
You could clearly not have it at all, but we have it so that if you look at it from the side, you actually will see that the underneath has a lip to it, so it's going over it to make sense.
Yeah, do you have anything to add to the head sculpt?
No, in terms of the head sculpt, that's. I mean, obviously, it was important to make sure that the colours were there. Yeah. The cheeks versus the orange of the actual head.
Shiny black nose.
Shiny black nose, but how about those eyes? The actual. Yes, we talked about the intensity of the eyebrows hanging over it, but how about the actual details of the actual eyes themselves, Sharks? What can you see in that?
Nice blue eyes.
A bit more than a nice blue eyes. It's a bit of a.
From the outer edge of the eye, it's the darker blue, and it goes the gradients.
Right, I think that's kind of important. Yeah.
So you get the lighter blue, and then you get the.
It's really sort of intense blue as well. It's got a lovely colour to it.
Yeah. And then moving down to his hoodie. Yeah, guys, you can actually see the hoodie on the back of. Yeah, you see it on your side.
There's a tail.
Massive tail. So you can see the hoodie. That's 3D sculpted in there. And then, I mean, it goes all the way down. It's a nice, bright, bold shade of blues, and different shading of blues. And then you get the zipper, the big, massive, chunky zipper.
Yep, right.
Sculpted, yeah. And then you get the kind of like the pulleys, the straps.
Yep.
One on either side. And then you can see the actual zip is like slightly pulled down a bit, so you can see the
opening.
Yeah, the kind of like the actual zip. The zip cross. Yeah, see it?
Yeah.
And then it's all tightened down at the bottom. And then there's that. You feel the kind of stitching that goes around at the bottom of the jacket, bottom of the hoodie, as well as around the wrists. Yeah, it's all nicely sculpted, nicely fitting.
It is.
Overhanging his belly.
It's cute.
Yep, and then you get the nice little sitting pose on top of the chair, followed down towards his trainers.
So you really see the trainers from the front.
Yeah.
And the reason, of course, is because he has no length in the legs to bend them, as you would imagine in a seat. Normally, if you could fit into a chair, you would see, at that point, the knees. And of course, your feet will be flat on the ground. That's a typical chair. Obviously, I don't need to spell that out for you. But of course, because he can't fit in it, and he's so small for the chair, you only see his feet from the front and the soles of his feet. So it was really important that the soles of the feet were sculpted and they weren't flat, because it's quite an important part that you see of him. Obviously you see his face. His body's so small in comparison to his face. So you see the tail, the face, and you see the shoes. It's at least 30% of the actual thing that you saw as the initially, right? Obviously, the feet being one that, as I was saying. So with it being such a big part of at least Conker from the front, it would be a disservice to have made it flat.
Yeah, and then, the bottom half of the trainers, sculpted, painted. It's nice clean lines, and then you can see the shoelaces from this side.
Right.
Yeah. Like
and that's what we like to do, give detail from different angles that you're not expecting to see.
Yeah. And those hands, those fingers. How many fingers? 3 fingers and a thumb.
But of course. Well, that's the same as Banjo. 3 fingers and a thumb. So he has that. He has the hands, which is correct as per the game.
Yeah.
The feet, as you were saying, the soles to be sculpted, the shoes to have all those details that you mentioned.
And the tail, yeah. can't really tell. I mean, the paint app on the tail. So the stronger oranges on the bottom, going towards the top is like a lighter orange, and it goes into yellow, then it goes into more transitions into kind of the white tip.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So obviously that's how it is in the game. We wanted to make sure that it was faithfully recreated in that regard. And let's talk a little bit about what's in his right hand, Chocks.
What is that? It's a glass. What does he drink?
Milk.
There you go, a glass of milk.
A glass of milk.
Yeah.
And again, you see it from the scene, and it was really important that we made sure that we treated it well. And the way that the glass is done is he doesn't hold it straight.
Nope.
He holds it at an angle, and it was important for us to recreate that by considering when you turn something to the side and it's liquid. As Bruce Lee said, right? Be thy liquid. Well, the point being is that the water will always be level. So it doesn't matter. So imagine this is sort of horizontal, and you have a glass of whatever it may be. However you hold the glass, it will stay level. Based on that, it was important that we had that recreated here. So as you can see here, Chocks, the actual glass, if you look at the glass here, the glass is on the left hand side is higher than the right hand side, i.e. it's tilting to the right? So the left side's been raised, but the actual level of the water is of the milk is horizontal, perfectly horizontal, despite the fact that the glass is turned. And that was something that we wanted to make sure that was captured, and it was that's really, really important. And I think some of the footage that we actually did, unfortunately, was incorrect, but this is the way it should be. It was a bit of a boo-boo,
We'll just play that like, let's go with that story.
Keeping you guys on your toes to see if you can spot the outtakes. But that's definitely something that the way it should be displayed, Chocks, is to have it so that the milk is absolutely flat and horizontal to make sure it's realistic, I would say. Gravity. So Chocks, I mean, that is Conker himself. What else is there? I mean, the actual piece is not just Conker. There is a little something else, or I should say a little big something else that really is kind of important, Chocks.
I mean, it adds, it has presence. So.
And what is that exactly?
This thing has got a bigger chair than we have, right? Yes, this luxurious chair. Throne.
Absolutely. Yeah. You. What kind of king would you be to be wearing a crown, yet have no place to rest your weary bum? And if you're going to rest this somewhere, Chocks, how about this throne? Yes. Now let's talk about those details, because this has been painstakingly recreated from the game, but there's a lot of details that have been added to it.
All right. I mean, everywhere you look at this chair, it's fully sculpted. I mean, these little, what do you call these? I don't know, what do you call
metal them? Accents, metal beads.
Beads.
It's almost like you would,
Are they made out of real gold? Gonna start prying them out.
That's the super version.
Yeah, super version. So no, these are not made out of gold. This is not made out of leather. This is not made out of real wood. This is resin, trying to give off the impression that it's made out of that. In the material I just mentioned. So, I mean, look at it, the different patterns on this chair itself. The leathery look, the leathery feel to it. It's very tight, it's taut, and it goes all the way from at the front where Conker's sitting, and then obviously the backrest all the way to the back.
Yeah, I mean, let's have a quick look at that. I mean, if you...
Where should I start?
This is crazy difficult to do, because it's got, look at all of that along the back and all of the front as well. And each one, it's got to be clean lines and individually placed. They're all done by having to place them in one by one.
Yeah.
All throughout the rest of the armrest as well. Those gold accents is incredibly painstakingly done, but it looks great. It looks really, really great. It has a really fantastic look to it. And if you notice the way that, let's say, if you look at the back, for example, if you look at the way that they are actually sort of spread out towards the back, a little bit more spread out at the top part, and again, it's a little bit closer. And that's to do with the way that the actual sculpting of the actual, we'll call them the pillowy kind of bulgy area over here is how it's done. So it's like a cushion, I would say, kind of cushioning. So imagine you have a cushion that's covered by leather skin, and then you use these things to screw them in place, these golden things. That's how you get that bumpy effect. That's sort of, because it's not flat, is it, Chocks? I'm not talking about the gold things now, I'm talking about the actual red parts. Yeah. They're not flat at all.
They're not flat at all.
It's the same concept for across the armrest as well. Yep. None of that's flat either. So, if we talk about the actual frame as well, you said it's wooden, and we really wanted to get that feeling that you could have it. So how can you, how are the ways that we made it look like it was wood?
I mean, it's going to look most obvious is around the edge, around here. I mean, that is different sculpts than the ones at the front surface. So it's kind of that tree trunk effect,
right.
the actual spirals between each wood.
The wood grain as well, where the sort of lines and horizontal lines are going across as well.
Same with like on the side here. And you need the actual chair itself and the legs themselves as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same principle throughout. You have this 3 elements to it. That is the wood, that is the red of the leather, and the gold of the accents. And those are all throughout the entirety of the design of the actual chair itself, or the throne, I should say, itself. And it's all been sort of brought into this piece itself. And it was really important that we could make sure that it was faithfully recreated. It's such a great looking chair. It's a great looking throne, and we wanted to, and it's just the circumstances, how he starts from going into the local tavern and how his day turns out and he ends up king of all the land. Just fantastic. What a fantastic story. So it was really important that we could make sure that the throne was being recreated correctly. So that's pretty much it in terms of the actual details, I would say, Chocks. I mean, we talked about that in the lines between the actual red leather areas, you have this kind of sort of darkening effect. So it has a great feeling of sort of, it's not so flat looking paint. And one other thing, Chocks, is leather has a very, very slight shine to it. A little bit more so than the typical matteness. So if you have a look at the way that the leather is compared to the wood grain, compared to Conker himself, do you notice any difference?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the shininess on the leather itself, the red parts. I mean, the accents, the gold accents is exactly that's shiny as itself. Itself, but yeah, there's less. The wood itself is more matte, but you do get some areas which are a little bit shiny.
Right. It's nice to have that little bit of sort of differences between the two, and we can always in production just to make sure that we make that a little bit more matte, to make the differences a little bit more obvious, I would say. But that's sort of what we wanted to do, to give how do you make some differences when you have these 3 different accents. It'd be nice to just have a little bit extra, so the leathers are a little bit shinier than the matte of the chair. Absolutely.
Yep.
Cool. All right, should we go on to the next one then, Charles?
Right, okay. Next question from James Tesk. Are you planning on having other cast of characters as add-ons, since many other characters appear in Throne Scene as well, or will they get their own standalone pieces?
Hey, that's a great question. We would love to hear what you guys think. Now, we've introduced a new concept here at First Figures, which is companion pieces, where it's almost like we call it the DLC of the statue world, or of how we do our things, where you could almost have sort of minifigures, mini statues that could go alongside whatever piece we're talking about. And I think Conker would be a really great example of having companion pieces where you can almost create your own throne scene. Yeah. If that's something that you would like to see, do let us know in the comments, in the club. We would love to hear from you. Otherwise, for us, that would make sense for me because they're quite quite small, and maybe you would almost do them in, at least from that scene, you might do them in like 2 packs, little bits that they sort of go together to sort of create that one by one. But in terms of the other pieces that are more main characters that you might want to see, maybe a giant poo, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well. So do let us know in the comments. Do let us know on Facebook. We'd love to hear from you.
All right. Next question from Brendan Rostello. Hardest part of designing this statue?
Well, as I was saying earlier on, Chocks, we knew straight away that the pose was going to be the pose. There was no difficulty in that. Was it challenging getting that right? Sure, but no more so than anything that we don't typically go through from any concept. Definitely the hardest thing was to try and get that right balance of the different styling and then the right detailing and angling of the fur. So for sure for me, the fur was the toughest part. How about for you, Jogs?
I don't know, I would have thought the beads.
I mean, that's an engineering thing. That's not particularly difficult, at least from the designing. It's more of a engineering thing, and it's more of a head scratching kind of thing to sort of get through that.
Yeah.
But in terms of the actual design, it was, again, we knew that we needed to recreate that the best we could. And for the fur, though, there was no real example for the fur, as in N64 graphics versus Xbox graphics that couldn't be recreated just in a typical statue. So we had to kind of get that happy medium in between the both. And
so, well, first of all, we had to make sure that it complements with banjo and kazoo
as well.
Yeah.
As well. Absolutely, and they came out great as well. So we wanted to make sure that we had that moving across.
All right, hope that answers your question, Brendan. Next one from Jake Mayer. Is his milk skim or regular?
Well, I'm pretty sure his is full of alcohol, to be honest with you. I'm a keto diet. I'm a full fat milk man. How about you, Chucks?
Any milk is fine with me. I don't complain.
I like it. So, Chucks, let's say that Conker is something that you decide that you want to have in your collection, and you're thinking, hey, that would look great next to my upcoming banjo or anything else, or I have a whatever collection you may do. I think it looks great. Well, how is it going to fit? What's the size? What's the weight? So why don't we let the guys know what's the size, what's the weight? Okay, Chuck?
Sure thing.
Okay. Let's start off with some
Coke Countess.
Coke Countess. Now, guys, these are 330 ml cans. So for our American friends, you're usually used to a 355. So this is a 330 version. And to the top point, which is the back of the chair, that brings it to over here. That is about 3.75 cans. Oh, bloody hell, leaning all over the shop.
Yep.
So yeah, just about over here.
Just about that, yeah.
Okay. So have you got some actual sizes for us?
I do. All right, let's talk about the height. So bottom of the chair to the highest point here. This is the highest point. I have that about 16.5 inches. So that is around 42 centimeters. Okay. For the width, I have it from this armrest to that armrest, so it's going to be like that. That's the width. I have that around 18 inches, so that's 46 centimeter wide, and the depth, which would be the front of the chair. Okay, let me just put this right there, like the front of the chair. Yeah, to the back, because this is slightly angled.
Yeah.
Right, so it's around, I'm going this way here like that. I have that around 14 inches.
So it's really compact,
so that's 36 centimeter.
That's actually quite compact, actually.
Yeah.
It's a nice sort of squarish sort of shape, isn't it, Jock? Especially because it leans out for a little bit over there. Yeah. So in terms of the space commitment, it's actually, I think a lot of people were a little bit concerned about the space commitments of what it might be. Might be quite pleasantly surprised that it can actually fit quite well in a lot of.
Yeah. The width and depth is actually all right. I mean, like height-wise, I mean, a lot of our collectors have plenty of height when it comes, because normally statues kind of take the width and the depth kind of thing, but statues with height, I think a lot of collectors will find that manageable.
Yeah, because usually you can raise the shelf, essentially.
Yeah.
So hopefully people will find that actually it's more manageable than expected. Now, just one thing before we continue, I just wanted to mention that there are some engineering things that we need to rework. A couple of things is, for example, there are some differences between the heights of these that need to be taken into account. The armrest, right? The armrests need to be slightly. I don't feel that's going to affect the measurements so much, Chucks, if at all.
It won't.
And also that there is a little bit of leaning on this foot, the feet rest, the feet.
The smoothness of the leg.
Yeah, right. I feel like it's a little bit raised here. It should be more flat. So that is definitely something that we will be tweaking when we go into the production times as well, of course, Chuck. So.
Yeah, and one of my concerns is right from the start was because this is quite a heavy chair. My concern was the leaning of the actual chair itself, leaning backwards. But obviously we're going to make sure that this is very stable. So when you put this on your flat surface or your shelf, this doesn't tip over.
How heavy is this again? Because this is ridiculous.
You want to know the weights?
We haven't actually done the weight on that because this is.
I have the weights.
Go ahead.
This Conker, I'm not going to say Conker's overweight. I'm just going to say that the actual throne itself is quite weighty. In total, this is 12.57 kg.
That's bonkers, and the reason is
12.57 kg.
The reason is, and that's including the Conker on it.
Including the Conker.
And that's because this sort of thinness of the base itself, of the chair, means it's too thin to remove it by making any part of it hollow, but it's really thick that it means that it's almost like solid concrete. 12 kilograms is heavy.
Very heavy.
Very heavy, and that is the reason why it's got so much weight to it. It's got so much weight to it. Cool. All right, Chucks.
All right.
What's next?
Shoutouts.
Boom.
Right, guys. So I was saying earlier on in the First Figures Official Collectors Club, in that same thread with the about the making of thread, in there I will randomly drop a statement saying first 10 people to reply to this comment will get a shout out from Alex. So yep, that was all the spots are filled up. So over to you.
Bada bing, bada boom. Shout out to Brandon Rolfe, Jake Mayer. How's it going? Brenton Friedley in the house. John Morales. I love it. We got Jay Guy in the house. We got Ian Tavis Casimir. Shout out to you. We have Jessica Castig. How's it going? Femke Hods Tavern. How you doing? And we have Emily L.P. Rose. And last but not least, Adriano de la Riva. Boom. Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Right.
Now, Chocks.
Yep.
This is the standard version of Conker. What you see is what you get is a great looking Conker piece on this magnificent looking throne.
Yeah.
We have the measurements, we have the sizing of all of that.
And including the crown and the glass of milk.
Absolutely. So I believe we have a question.
Yeah. Question from Joe Patterson. What was the inspiration for the exclusive edition?
Well, I look forward to showing you in 3, 2, 1. Boom! Check it out, Joel. This is the absolute inspiration of the exclusive version of Conker. Now, there is this picture, now, ting over to you, where you see Conker with these really, really massive smile on his face, like this, with these dollar signs in his eyes. And it's like, cha-ching, cha-ching. And we really wanted to try to do something different with this exclusive, is to come up with this beautiful, beautiful metal, this metal coin. And it's a lovely commemorative coin, and it has a really great weight to it as well. Yeah. And Chocks, what do you do to talk a little bit about the design on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
I say what it was inspired about. So
yeah. So as you guys would have known, if you play the game, you see this expression in the game where he has the dollar signs on his eye, replacing his eyes, and this is 3D sculpted. It has the actual head sculpt raised. It's going to be really hard to pick up here, but if you see the pictures that Ting has overlaid, then you'll see the different levels. So there's a good 3 or 4 different levels, because you get the face, then his teeth, sticking out further up, and then you have the nose sticking out further up as well. Yeah, and this part, the face is very, very shiny.
So there's a difference between the shininess of the face versus the matteness of the background.
Yeah, the background. So the background has this kind of a rough kind of a one look, and then around the edges, all of it is covered with dollar signs around the edge of the coin. Bling, 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 bling. And then it has just a nice kind of a ridged pattern that goes up on the outer surface of the coin. Yep.
Yeah.
So this is this side, and then on the back you have the actual game logo. Conker's Bad Fur Day. The one that you see in the intro as you boot up the game.
And as you were saying, Chocks, they've got the matte.
That is also raised as well, and shiny. The logo itself is shiny, and then again the background is all matte. And on this side, you have the kind of the diamond shape that goes around the edge of the coin, so it's kind of replicating the diamond shape on Conker's crown.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Has some weight to it.
It's got some good weight to it. So what's the weight of this?
Well, I've got that about 0.2 kg.
But 200 grams on that. That's. I like how that's come out.
Yeah.
It's come out really nice.
Yeah.
Now we have it comes with a little mini stand, and we haven't 100% finalized what it's going to be, but it's going to be something similar to this, which is going to allow you to place your coin however you want to place it, like that, at the front, however you want to do it. Should we do it? Oops.
Yeah.
Like that.
Facing straight.
Facing straight. How would you put yours? Some might even want to...
On his armrest?
Sure. If you're feeling lucky tonight.
I'll put it between his legs.
Okay.
He's gripping it. All mine. All the money in the world.
Like that?
No, between his legs.
Up between.
Would it even fit?
I'm not even going to try it right now on camera.
Yeah, guys, this is quite a nice size. It's 8 centimeters by 8 centimeters, so 3 inch by 3 inch. So the actual coin.
And there's quite a bit of thickness to it as well, isn't there, Jocks?
Yeah, I got that around about half an inch. No, not half an inch. Sorry, 0.24. That's kind of weird. I'm getting some weird measurements here. Yeah.
the depth is a depth.
Yeah, I know. Like, why is it two measurements there? I would say, just by eyeing that up, I would say about just a little bit over half a centimeter.
That reminds me of a story my mum used to tell me. We used to live in Egypt, right? Mm-hmm. And she would say that when we were getting something renovated, there was a broken window or something. The mum called in the local handyman, who came over and said, "Oh, so you got a broken window?" And my mum was like, "Okay, so how much is it?" And he sort of he looked at it from across the room and went. And then however much it was in Egyptian dollars or whatever it was, and it's like you going, just by looking at it, it's half of a centimeter.
I would say 5 millimeter, 6 millimeter.
Absolutely. All right, Chocks, let's keep on going.
All right, what next?
I think we have another question.
Yes, Sven, yeah. Sven. Alright, did you consider a cushion-only version for those that don't have the space or funds for the statue with throne? What were the reasons for not going with that version, if there was a version of that?
First of all, this is King Conker. King Conker sits nowhere but a throne. He's not sitting on a piddly cushion or whatever it may be, right? He must come with something that gives him that presence.
Now I feel a sense of power,
right?
Yeah, because like in the game, that chair was like massive, and then he's there, and it gives off that sense of, power.
It has to have that, right? And if you actually see the size of Conker, he's in scale with that of Banjo-Kazooie as well. Yeah. Obviously, significantly smaller, but the throne itself is, yes, of course, is much bigger than he is, but the overall size, as you gave it with the measurements, isn't too encumbering. It's not too much of a problem. and it means that it was never even a consideration, not even a little bit of a consideration, that we would even ever just consider just to have the cushion that he's sitting on there with no armrests, no backing. You don't have that sense of scale. It was never going to be a consideration, Chocks. So Sven, to answer your question, the reasons for not going with that is quite clear. It would not be befitting of a king. However, we went one step forward and we thought this is the all-encompassing Conker. He has to be in his chair, in his throne. But you know what, Chocks? We do need to take into consideration size. We would never take into consideration of him not being on the throne, but there is something that in order for it to be literally pulled out of that scene, we did a little something the complete opposite of what Sven said, and we went bigger. And we'll show you that in 3, 2, 1. Boom! Check it out, Sven. The definitive edition is the complete forward in terms of making it bigger rather than making him start on his cushion. So there is a cushion in this version, Chocks. It is at the front, but of course the overall thing has now gone that little step up. And of course the regular exclusive, it comes with the throne and it's going to be enough for a lot of people. Their collection, they want to fit it on their space. If you have the absolute ability to go for this version, this is the definitive version, it's the way that we wanted to portray it, to make it a little bit closer to the actual scenes it's supposed to recreate. And with that, of course, Chocks, is, well, let's talk about it. He's still on the throne, but it's just that more complete. There is, of course, this dais right here, which is really, this dais is like the sort of platform that thrones or speakers can go on, that has that raisiness to it, and which of course is like that in the actual game itself. He has that so people can come and worship him from in front or come to address him, and he's raised up on that platform, and he really needs that because he is a small character, right? So any extra, it's like platform shoes, right? Any kind of boosty in the raising of him will of course allow for you to have that. Now if we keep turning it, Chocks, also he has his dais here, right? His dais here, right? And he also has, and it's kind of hard to see from that front angle, but you'll really see it when this starts turning. Now if you think this had a difficulty turning on the previous one, it has even more difficulty changing with this one because this is heavy, and we'll come to that a little bit later on. But when you're not looking at it from the front, Chocks, it's kind of hard to actually see it because it's the same sort of idea of having the 3 key elements, which was the wood, leather and golden dots, but you have this beautiful footrest here. You see that, Chocks? This beautiful footrest here, which, as I said, from the front you can't actually see it, but now that we're turning, it gives you a much more complete version of the royalty, the elegance of how he would look. And it comes with this great looking footrest. What do you think about that, Chocks?
Yeah, I mean, completes the picture straight from the game. Adds more environmental effects to it, like the raised platform and the actual footstool at the front. So yeah.
Right, and this is really, as I said, it really kind of completes it to have that effect. Now, why don't we work the way from down to up in terms of the details and the sort of sizing and all that sort of stuff? Why don't we have a conversation about that?
Yeah, I mean, the platform from the game, it's the throne on top of the kind of a, stone slab. It's like have different layers. Now there's 2 steps here, so it's like a scene from the castle or tavern, however you want to call it. Obviously the ground is going to be made out of
from the castle.
It's made out of stones. So at a base now it has this kind of nice dark black and purples, and it feels like
there's purples and greys and blacks and orange, sort of dirty effect on there as well. So it's not just one color.
No. And then you get the kind of the cracks, the rough edges, of it's like
stonework.
Yeah, stone. Yeah, it's like the chipping away and then placing each slab onto the ground. you can't see underneath the chair, underneath the footstool, the lines, the gaps, the different stone slabs that are raised at different heights.
And that's quite challenging actually for us to make sure that we find that you're going to find that there's going to be some bits that are underneath the legs that aren't actually flat with the thing, because the actual slabs themselves go down in the cracks. So that's likely that's what it will be like, but of course it will still be stable. Yeah, that's for sure.
And I mean, like, just starting off from the lower layer is much wider than the top layer, because you want to give them that kind of stepping effect.
That's right.
And so it's all rough edges. Some slabs are sticking out on one side and then a bit more inwards on this side, for example. But it's still, the measurements is still a nice rectangular shape. So if this side was moving in a little bit, the opposite side will be sticking out. So it's all nicely even,
symmetrical, and it has that balance to it, Chocks. For sure. So, definitely recreating that just a little bit more. Yes, you have the throne, yes, you have Conker, but if you wanted to have the definitive one, and you have the space with which, because there's no doubt it's not for everyone. Some will be thinking that the Conker of the exclusive and the regular is just about right in terms of their collection, or those that have the space to dedicate to the definitive, that's the one for you if you really like the way that it recreates that. But it's not just recreating the scene, Chocks, that also gives the definitive its name. It's not just about the great dais here. Or the dais, can someone please correct me? And it's also not just about the footrest on there, just to give it that extra completion. Those who've been eagle-eyed and spotted, because we haven't actually been talking about this yet, there's a little something different, or I should say a too little something difference there, Chocks. What is that exactly?
Well, this is the updated version of the crown compared to the original crown.
Absolutely.
Right, so we have the crown here. We'll go into a little bit more detail a little bit later. And then this time we have a silver goblet.
Right, very, very different in the...
Very different, it's very...
regal in the way that it looks compared to the one of the previous version.
Yeah, the original version. The original version was the glass and milk and the kind of like a basic standard crown, and then the remastered version, the updated version with the silver goblet. Again, is there milk in there?
There is milk in there.
I can't see it from here from
nice
this angle.
And flat.
Right, so there is milk in there. This one is what? Silver. It has this kind of like a worn speckle effect around the goblet. Yeah, definitely. Then different silvers, different specks of it, and then on the edge of the goblet has the raised diamond-shaped gems. So
it's got those jewels in there as well.
So
right?
he's upgraded himself with the silver goblet, and now check out that crown.
When are we going to upgrade ourselves, Josh?
We need to upgrade the chairs.
Oh yeah, true that.
So the crown, look at that crown. It's much more spectacular this time round. Again, you still have the white fur around the edges. It's still angled at
in the same angle. Right.
So it's the same, but this time is much more impressive. Where the fur, again, you still have the white fur with some touch of greys.
Engineering-wise, this is a lot more tricky, Charles, because it has this negative space in the gaps. Means it involves a lot more molds to try and get that to work and get that fitted.
Yeah, and then straight at the top you have the dollar sign. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, dollar sign from the game, and then the edge, the crown. Obviously, the standard crown would be the triangles. Between each triangle, you have the kind of
that looping. As I said, that was really tough to do to make sure, because you have that negative space there. It's actually pretty tough.
And then going around the crown, you have diamond-shaped gems, and then you have the circular gems. But they're not like fully circle. They have that kind of, they have ridges.
Right.
Per red gem.
Yeah,
the circular gems, and then you have the kind of raised rivets.
The little bolts and stuff on there as well.
Yeah. Anything in the middle?
Well, no, just the purple fluffiness.
Yeah, the purple.
Well, you can't see from this angle.
Oh, yes, it's all.
That's what I'm saying. It's really difficult to do that, to do it like that.
Yeah, you can see it from here. More of it here.
Absolutely. So the thing about this, of course, Chocks, this is the definitive version, so you absolutely have the choice whether or not your Conker is to be displayed today in this version, which is the live and reloaded version.
Yep.
Or alternatively, you could have this, which is a swap out head. You can put that on yourself anytime you want, and also with the milk itself. So you have the choice of how you wish to display. Maybe this week you want to have this version, next week you want to have that version. Up to you. And of course, the definitive will also come with the that can go between his legs at the right height now.
There you go.
I know you were asking me to do that a little bit earlier. Now his legs aren't long enough to hold that, but it can nicely fit on his footrest.
The foot's good. That's what it's there for,
That's what
all
it's
its
there
glory.
For. In all its glory. So this is the definitive version. It comes with 2 sets of crowns, 2 sets of drinking apparatus. The cup or the goblet. Comes with also the commemorative coin, which is made of metal. Now this is going to weigh, no doubt in my mind, a lot more, but we'll just make sure we have the height first. So going back to the... Now, there's a couple of inches in there, I would have thought.
I'll go for that in a bit.
In terms of the height, so... Yeah, you could definitely say it's just shy. It's just over 4, so it's sort of... falling over. Yeah, I mean, it's really coming into just 4 and a bit. 4 and a bit in terms of 330 ml cans. So that's the height. So it's not too much higher.
Not too much height. Yep, so from measurements, for the standard and exclusive version, I did mention that was 16.5 inches.
Right.
So for the DE Definitive Edition, I'm measuring from the base of the platform to the tip of the chair, throne. I have that 18.5 inches, so that's just 2 inches, for the platform itself. Yep, platform. So that's 18.5 inches. That's 47 centimeters.
I would probably even say that the width is exactly the same.
Width is exactly the same. 18 inches and 46 centimeters wide.
Because it's coming off from the arm.
From the arm. Well, this is going to be the interesting part. The depth.
This is.
So if you want to just take that, twist that round. Just careful of the crown and the glass of milk. So with the standard and exclusive version, I did mention that is 14 inches, so that's 36 centimeters. That is from the front of the actual throne to the back of this throne here. So with the platform here sticking out at pretty much the same.
Yeah, we definitely want to waist, so we wanted to make sure we kept that.
And then now you just extend in from the front of the throne to the front of this platform.
This is actually not as bad as I thought it was actually going to be.
Yeah, so that in total, from all the way to the front of that platform is 21 inches. All right, so that's 54 centimeters. So that's an extra 7 inches.
So it's not actually that bad. The great thing is there's a lot of negative space when the original, the exclusive, and the regular. What I mean is this comes out the front and that leans out the back, meaning you actually have things to do in that negative area, which is, we're obviously maximizing the use of it.
Right. The
actual platform itself comes out to match the width of the back. You can see it comes out to the same place, so there's no extra on that. And then the use of the footrest, it goes in between the arms, right? And it comes back a bit towards Conker himself, so it allows for it to take advantage of the fact that these armrests stick out. Right. And therefore, because if you can imagine, this was the end, and then you added it by adding the footrest on top of it, it would be even longer. So usually I know a lot of collectors find it difficult in terms of the lengthwise, but yes, it's 7 inches more.
I mean, if you want to get technical and you just want to know the measurements of the base alone, I have the height. Again, that was at 2 inches high, so that's 5 centimeters. The width is 15.5 inches because it's much more narrower compared to the throne. So that's 15.5 inches. That's 39 centimeters, and for the depth, it's actually 20 inches. So it's only a 1 inch difference with the front added on top. So that's 20 inches in depth, which is 51 centimeters. And the weight of this base alone is 7.754 kg.
Yowzers!
Just remember that, guys. 7.754 kg.
It's what I was saying before. It's at that thickness where you can't remove it to make it hollow.
And for those guys that just want to, see the difference, for this footstool, the actual measurements for that is 3 inches high. So it's not that high. 3 inches high. So that's 8 centimeters. The width is 9 inches across. So that's 23 centimeters. And the depth is 6 inches back. So that's 15 centimeters. And the weight of the stool alone is 1.82 kg.
Altogether, then.
That's a lot of information I'm just giving out, guys.
Yeah.
So for the actual overall weight,
I
think I need my calculator here this time. For the actual overall weight, just bear with me a second, guys.
You prepared all those measurements, but you didn't figure out what the weight was.
So I'm going to do it this. 12.57 kg is the throne with Conker.
Right.
Plus the 1.82 kg for the footstool. Plus 7.754 for the base only. Guys, I'm not kidding. I have that. Can you see that?
22, baby.
Yep. 22.144 kg.
And then you want to throw in the coin, and then you want to throw in all the other things if you want to display it like that. It can. Just make sure you have a sturdy shelf, I would say, for that.
That's right, yeah.
Don't be putting it on a Detolf. Not that you can fit it on one, but definitely you want to consider the weight of that. It's, definitely got that weight to it.
Over 22 kgs for the whole setup. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay, well, you know what, Chocks? Conker has a really special place in my heart, having stormed the beach many times with my friends back in the day, saying it on the N64, evolving it into the Xbox, and playing with Pooh.
It's been many years, and finally we have this in 3D statue form.
I think it's a great piece that really matches our F4F collection overall of all our different types of products that we do. And I'm so glad that we've got a chance to flex our sculpting and our production of this piece. So we hope you like what you see here, guys. Make sure you do subscribe to us on YouTube and check us out in the First Figures Official Collectors group. And as we were saying earlier, if there is any questions, comments, or anything like that, just pop us a message. We're very, very sort of active on the social media platforms. So do indeed check us out and subscribe and join the club as well. Anything you want to add, Chuck, before we wrap this one up?
I mean, we look forward to that day where we have Conker and Banjo-Kazooie together. And we look forward to keep on working on both lines. And if you guys, look at it, just looking at the screen right, it's like centerpiece here.
Absolutely.
Imagine all the other rare characters in your collection, and this will go really, really well if you're a big, massive fan of Conker or Banjo. So we look forward to seeing you guys posting your rare and Conker, your Banjo and Conker statues into the Collectors Club as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Look forward to that. Yep. All right, Chucks, that's it.
Cool.
All right, nice one. I'm your host, Alex.
I'm Chuckles.
F4F is love.
F4F is life.
And we'll see you in the next one. Peace!
Laters!